All right, guys, welcome.
All right.
Welcome to the Ben and Ryan show. We are excited to talk about the Adobe Hackathon that just happened. So we have three of the participants. Actually, one of my co-hosts, my partner in crime, Mr. Ben Nadel. He was one of the participants. He came in third. Second. Oh, you just wanted to rub it in because Wade, did you come in third then?
I came in third, yeah.
And then so we have Wade Bachelder who's with us today, and then also Ray Camden, and Ray got a ribbon. So he got the participation trophy. Yeah, my kids have many of those from swimming. So if you want one, we can ship it off, and so you can have your ribbon. But yeah, okay. But yeah, so we're here to talk about that hackathon, kind of our experiences with it and everything. And before we get our two guests, I'll give them about 30 seconds to introduce themselves. So, Ray, for those who don't know you, we'll start with you, and we'll have Wade introduce himself after that.
Sure. Hi, I'm Raymond Camden. I'm an API evangelist for Foxit. So we do document stuff with PDFs and things like that. I have some great REST APIs that came out 10 days or so ago. I had to look at the calendar. I have been in development for 30-ish or so years, and I've been good for about 2 months. So I figure another 30 years, I'll be a good intermediate developer.
Excellent. Wade, how about you?
Hi, my name's Wade Bachelder. Been using ColdFusion since 98, I think version 3 something. So yeah, I've been using it. It's my go-to. It's basically everything. If I can't find it in ColdFusion, then of course I look elsewhere. But for most part, yeah, ColdFusion. And I do my own thing. I got my own little LLC, and do a little contracting, consulting, stuff like that. I love using APIs, so that's a fun thing too for ColdFusion. So
nice.
To be here.
And we'll include links to Ray's blog as well as Wade your pages in the show notes. So if anyone wants to kind of reach out, they can do so on your platforms. And to kind of go with what Wade was saying about the ColdFusion for the win, I see that Ben has added that to his name for this week. So yeah, CFML for the win. So we're here to talk about the hackathon. For those who did not participate, this was a virtual hackathon that Adobe put on. It was kind of loose rules, I guess I should say. They said, hey, you need to start on a Friday and turn it in by, I think it was either Sunday or Monday.
I will argue the point that they didn't say that. Like they announced it was and they had some dates. I thought, oh, that's like when you turn stuff in.
That's what I thought too.
Thank you. I just did it. I reached out to Mark. I'm like, hey, this is ongoing, but can I blog about it before the contest really begins? He was like, oh, you've already done it? So there, thank you, Wade.
Yeah, I was pretty much almost done too. I started a few days early. I'm like, oh, it doesn't say anything. I thought this was the turn-in period. But for me, the weekend, I wasn't, Saturday, Sunday, Monday was a wash. I wasn't even able to get to it anyway. So,
and it was Father's Day weekend, wasn't it?
All right.
Yeah, I think it was even Father's Day weekend, I think. Yeah, so it was an interesting weekend to try and do it. But anyway, did the hackathon. So it was a virtual hackathon. We was not in person, and a little confusion about the dates. And the idea is that you use some of the new CF 2025 features in some creative way, and really that was the requirement. And you could do it in teams of 1, 2, 3. I don't believe there's any limit to the number of teams, and they had some prizes out there or number of people on the teams. So we're going to go around the room. So we could do the introduction of the hackathon. So Wade, why don't you go first and kind of tell us about your project and your inspiration for it?
I heard Wade. Is it Wade or Ray?
Wade.
Oh.
I'll just point.
Yeah, no, I saw it. I was like, okay, why not? Let's have some fun with it. It's the first time. For every ColdFusion or virtual or in person, they've always pushed security. And I've been doing security for a while, so I'm like, well, I got the CVEs, let's connect to that. Been connecting to that and using that for years, and With that, I used, cfCatch. I saw, oh, hey, there's some new cfCatch stuff. You could do multiple catch types. So I'm like, oh, okay, let's continue rolling with that, and let's see what else I can do. And I know CSV write and read. I'm like, that's probably going to be used a lot. So I kept it pretty basic, a read and a write. And then my final thoughts were charts, because I know a lot of people don't use the ColdFusion charts, at least from what I've seen and read about. I've been using charts for years, only ColdFusion charts. So I thought I might have a bit of an advantage. I don't know, because I was on security, many different ways to output the data, and then the charts. So there's a JSON call to serialize that, and then there's the serialize to query, which is a new one. So each chunk kind of represented a new way of doing it. The pie charts came from just the regular JSON, and then I did a different types of a line chart and a donut chart, which they call a ring in the code, which is kind of confusing. So I'm messing around with that. I figured out, the new chart stuff is kind of cool. The themes were nice, especially over the old stuff. The animations were cool. I tried to squeeze chart set in there, but some of the things didn't quite work well with it, especially the themes and whatnot. So that was the thing I was struggling with. I go, do I include this to make it look bad, or do the feature instead of the function?
And so what were you? So just for listeners / watchers benefit, CVE is like a globally agreed upon security ticket. I don't know where those come from exactly.
Yeah, it's a CISA CVE, knowing exploded vulnerabilities.
So then what were you graphing? You're graphing like the number of...
the first graph when we got through the pie charts were ColdFusion and Adobe related. How many were known and unknown as far as ransomware for ColdFusion? How many as a whole compared to all of them? So the first chunk was like all CVEs. And then the second part was broken down by vendor. So yeah, the first was ColdFusion, and then there's a pie chart for Adobe in whole, how many CVEs versus in general. So it shows that pie chart. Then the line chart goes into all of the vendors.
It's very timely because Adobe dropped a security patch yesterday.
Yeah.
Like the 25th one or something. I don't know.
So like this year.
Yeah. So once you go through, the first couple of charts of all the data, then it goes down to Adobe and it breaks it down by each individual CVE, and then a couple more charts from there just to show off the themes and just the functionality of the code. And I used old, as they call it. I think one mentioned it was classic CFML, which was very kind way of putting it. Because I had some static tables in there. I had old school coding mixed in with the new CF scripting stuff. But I'm a tag based. I'm not a script. I'm one of the older. So and I can learn script, and I know the CF script stuff. But by heart, I'm just CF loop. The tag based index equals whatever. To strip that down. But the overall theme was CVE and overall, like an overall umbrella, broken down to the vendor. And then from there, which I ran out of time, was going to be like a software stack where you can actually choose the software and then list the CVEs. And it's just basically a way to look at all of the open vulnerabilities and ways to keep your information secure, your environment. So you can compare and go, oh, hey, did we apply this patch? And, if you're a ColdFusion user, it's pretty simple for most part. Sometimes you have to manually get in there and apply the updates. But that was the overall gist of it, was security with the CVEs broken down to Adobe and using as many new functionality and codes and snippets. And so I learned a lot, which was great. But my current host is on 2023, so I have to go back to those charts, and I'm just kind of like,
yeah.
I mean, I happen to know a fix for that.
Then he gets another charting.
No, a new host. If you need a new host, there's someone I know who does hosting and currently supports 2025.
Yeah, that's one of the issues I've noticed. I don't know. I know it's a side topic probably for later, but
we can talk about this the entire show.
Oh, okay. I was just
that's literally my job.
How did they get into like these hostings? Because I would be pushing for it. I'd be like, "Hey, can you guys upgrade to the latest?" But they're like, "No, we're stuck on this one." So
yeah, we will chat later actually. But,
okay, that's a side story. But yeah, that was my general was to security, using the new functionality, and to knock it out on charts.
And I saw you mention some bug you found, and I saw Ray shaking his head a lot on that. So let's do a little double click into that, because the term the kids are using nowadays.
The chart set, the CFML charts.
Yeah, what happened there? What were some of the problems?
Well, it's a new function, but it I don't know if it just doesn't tie in with the other charting. It doesn't tie in with the themes. So if you put a theme in there, it looks not right. And same with the donut / ring charts. If you put a theme in that, it looks. It's just
strange.
The new ones don't respect the theme.
Yeah.
Ray, you saw that too?
The animations are fine. The animations are great, but as far as themes, no.
So I have the theme working, I think, but I immediately ran into issues with chart set. I think my main issue was that the default format was not HTML; it was PNG or something. And when I switched the format, it goes HTML. I think it fixed things, but it felt incredibly brittle, and it just it felt brittle.
Yeah, and if you use HTML charts and you declare HTML as your beginning code, it doesn't work either. The charts will not render. It's commented out in the code, but yeah, the first line, doc type HTML, and you do HTML charts, it does nothing. It used to be able to put in a pixel amount, like instead of just the hard coded 500, you used to be able to put pixel in there and it would work. But I think that's a bug that they have on their tracker. I threw that on their beta testing. But yeah, that's still not working. So don't declare your document HTML if you're going to use the HTML charts.
That's good to know. I mean, developers, if you're listening, that could be something you're struggling with. You realize it's not working, and you just take out your doc type in the beginning. All right, Ray, your project. What do we got?
So many years ago, I worked for a small web shop, and one of my coworkers had built a one-file bug tracker. Database. I think it actually stored its information in a Wix file. But the idea was you literally just save this file to your web root, open it up, and you can start logging bugs. And again, it was no Jira, it was nothing like that. But for non-technical people, it gave them a quick way to report stuff, such that engineering could come take that later and work with it. I actually, way back when, I worked with a guy. I did some improvements on this one script thing, but obviously it was not meant to be expanded. I turned it into a full big database-backed tool, open source project called Lighthouse Pro. Really going back in history here, Macromedia, after they bought a layer, for a while they had this thing called the DRK, a developer resource kit, where once a quarter they would send you a CD if you paid for it. They would send you a CD, and it would have crap for like Fireworks, ColdFusion, Flash, etc. It was all like little things that you could use. Macromedia actually reached out to me and offered to pay me to build stuff for this. And I said, sure, but I normally do open source stuff. They said, no problem. You could open source it in like 6 months. So I turned that little one file bug tracker into like a real bug tracker because I was paid to do so, and then became open source after that. So my thinking was to recreate that, just one file, like nothing else at all, and to work with the new CSV functions and have it write to a CSV file, definitely not Wix or not JSON either, because my thinking was that, you could sit there and just start logging some bugs and stuff you find, and then you have essentially an Excel compatible sheet that you could give to a QA person and they could import it into Jira. So it's like a temporary, quick bug tracking thing. The CSV stuff is the main thing that I use. I will admit to using CF chart set and CF chart. I am incredibly opposed. I hate to say it, I for a decade now, I have really, really hated the fact that ColdFusion did anything client side. I think it's a huge mistake, and we could go into that if you want. But I got over it because I realized, my submission's doing like one new thing. I should at least try chart set. So I threw up a little bit in my mouth and I added chart set.
Oh no!
3 basic charts that would show you like, oh, here's your bugs versus new features, bug severity and stuff like that. It's also got PDF output as well.
Yeah, when I saw yours, I love that idea. I mean, just an easy thing you can kind of drop somewhere. So I was like, I really related to that. Just something easy. You drop in your web root, and all right, here we go. It just creates your CSV, and you don't no database connections, none of that. It's the easy button, and as you said, you can kind of send that off to someone who can upload a Jira or do whatever with. So I for concept wise, that was really cool. I like that one.
It was a bit like I had one file like that was my outside of the CSV file, but like one code file. So I tried very hard to make it readable and make it such that, oh, I know where this is when I want to update that. So like there's a switch statement for the different views. There's a script block on top. All my JavaScript dependencies, like I use Shoelace for web components. That's all CDN loaded. So it was kind of almost like that code golf type challenges where you have to like write something incredibly small. For me, my challenge was all this in one file and still something that wouldn't make me crazy to do edits in.
Yeah, I've talked to our our front end designer, or I guess full stack, he just calls himself. And he tried to he's done those challenges where it's like, okay, hey, recreate this HTML graphic looking thing using like the smallest number of characters possible. It's crazy what they can do. Yeah. You look at this, you're like, wow, that is amazing. So, Ray's done that in a file. All right, Ben, you're up, sir.
Sure. So I built a little web app called Sitter Snacks, which was a way for me to provide kind of a snack menu for the babysitter, which is, AKA the dog sitter. Because every time she's going to come over and look at the dog, I get her potato chips. And sometimes if it's around a mealtime, I'll get her pizza or a burger or something. So I always text her, ask her what she wants. And I thought it'd be a fun idea to have a predefined set of drinks and chips and meals and just be able to send her the link. I mean, I didn't actually do any of this for her, right? It's just it was the impetus of the idea. And then she could go in, or one could go in and say, I want this, this, and this. And like Ray, it stored the data in CSV files. I actually ran into a huge bug with the CSV files. So you can push data into CSV using like one of 3 different methods or something. It's like you can do kind of like what is like how ColdFusion queries are represented as sets of arrays that are the column datas, but then you can also kind of think of a query as an array of structs. So you can use CSVs. You can generate CSVs from both those approaches. And the one that uses like arrays of arrays was just completely broken, or was like arrays of structs was completely broken. And the output would change depending on whether or not the struct was an ordered struct or just a normal struct. So I ended up using arrays of arrays instead of arrays of structs. So that was, but like it took me forever not forever, it took me a couple of hours to figure out what the heck was going on. Like, where was the bug? And the bug was not in my code, thankfully. But it's just funny. I mean, I don't want to throw shade on anybody, but it's like the big things of the release were the charting and the CSV, and it's unfortunate that there were bugs in both of those.
Now, I had heard chatter about this hackathon months ago, and I actually thought it was going to be during the beta process that they're going to do a hackathon. I thought that would have been a good idea to do it then, to kind of find some of this stuff out during that process.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny too, because the beta was supposed to introduce a Docker build for the Apple Silicon chips. But even in the final 2025 release, that's still not available. So I ended up using CommandBox, their base 2025 image. Thank goodness they release images for everything on like every architecture. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, in general, Apple's not having a good year, so maybe combined. They're like, hey, you know what? We're just not going to release it. It's an Apple product. It's okay if we release it a year later.
And one of the other things that I used, so CSV was the main gesture there. That was the main thing I was trying. But then they also introduced this idea of property files. And I'm not super familiar with special configuration files. I know forever ColdFusion has supported something called an INI file, which has profile strings. Again, I assume this is like an industry standard. And profile properties files are just like a sort of a different form of that INI file where you can break things down by key value pairs and you can write. I don't know. It's like everything is a slightly different take on JSON files at this point in my mind. But
Ray,
you're
smirking.
You can have comments in it. You know, that's always nice.
Yeah.
No, so now, Ben, Ray, I have questions for you guys. So I know, Ben, you've recently, we've chatted on other shows about how you're kind of diving into the Lucy world now with the current company. Ray, you are evangelizing for BoxLang.
BoxLang, yeah, not Box, but BoxLang. Yeah.
BoxLang. So for BoxLang, so if question for you guys, so given this was an Adobe ColdFusion hackathon, you guys did certain projects. Would you guys have changed anything if you had to use either of those languages and newer features for those languages in a hackathon project?
Well, for me, the biggest issue is that BoxLang does not have CSV support built in. It's incredibly easy to add. In fact, I blogged about it last week. You just drop a jar file or you do a Maven thing and like you're done. So yeah, it has that very easy. But like that would have broke my rule of only having one file. Like there'd be either a jar to go along with it, or asking the person to go into Maven. So again, like that was my made up rule. So if I had to go to BoxLang, I would just say, yeah, go in Maven and do this and be done, which would still be one file.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
So, okay, I know of Maven, and I know of there's a website, I think it's called Maven Repository. And so every time I have to include jar files, third-party jar files in my ColdFusion, I literally go to the Maven repository URL and I look up the thing, and then it shows me the compile time dependencies. And I click through to those and I download the jar files, and then I look at all those compile time dependencies, right? And it's like a rabbit hole of recursion.
Yeah.
Is there, for people who are not Java developers, because Maven is primarily a Java tool, I believe, is it easy? Is there a way that I can treat it like an NPM where I'm just installing things via Maven? Is that, I've never looked into it because it's always kind of made me nervous.
Yeah. I'm definitely not a Java person. I don't want to be a Java person. But the way you describe it, like package.json, yeah, it's like that. So instead of nice JSON, you copy and paste some XML, and then at the command line, you do mvn install or whatever. And then it does like npm install does. It's like, oh, you asked for X. It depends on A, B, and Z. A depends on X, Y, and whatever. It does all that magic for you, and you're done. I think, like for me, like I'm thinking, all right, so what's better, Maven or jar? For BoxLang and Maven, you do go into a system file, which always feels a little bit not wrong. Just like if I'm doing an open source project, I'm not sure I would want to ask someone to go into a system file. That may be hard for them.
Yeah,
Whereas in jar, it's just like, bam, it's here. But if they do the Maven thing, they can automatically get a new version. They can get like a new minor version easier. whereas the jar is kind of set. To me, it's like one of six. No, six of one, half a dozen of another, on like what you would do in general.
I got to try it out sometime because some of these package files, some of these jar files, it's like so I use FlexMark. It's a Java Markdown parser, and you ultimately have to download like 16 different jar files to get this to work. So I'm like clicking through, and they all have kind of
they have like a combined like FlexMark.
They have like a fat jar kind of a thing.
Yeah. Yes. Look at my blog. I know I used.
I gotta find that because I'm so sick of downloading. And then I use JSoup, which is like a jQuery for Java, and it's one jar file. It's so nice.
I will say the BoxLang folks, like they're running on the JVM, but like they don't document Java because you don't want to learn Java, you want to learn BoxLang, right? For their Maven integration, they actually tell you how to install Maven and use it. And that's great because a lot of the Java docs for everything feels like not friendly to me. It's just my personal opinion. The BoxLang, they essentially copied and rewrote and made it simplified. So even if you don't care about BoxLang at all, but you want to learn more about Maven, go to their doc because you'll be up and running in like 5 minutes.
And then their information on Maven's kind of universal then, so that can be applied to ACF or Lucy as well.
No clue if Maven's ACF.
Well, I mean, ultimately, the outcome of Maven, my understanding, is you're pulling down all of the jar files like you would be pulling down NPM packages. And then once you have the jar files, whether it's Box or Lucy or Adobe ColdFusion, you would just consume those.
I don't know if it grabs jars, which like already compiled. It may grab the right Java stuff and then compile.
Oh, interesting.
Which again ends up being the same thing, but
I've always been so excited about all of these sort of native Java integrations that the CFML engines have been adding over the years, where you can either in your ColdFusion component, you could say this implements a Java interface, or you can even say this is like a type Java. You could have methods that are type Java. And every single time I've tried to go and do it, it's like it just doesn't work how I think it's going to work, or I don't get the right interfaces, or this or that. And I don't know. I just want Java to be as simple as ColdFusion. And so I assume that integration will be simple, and it's just not.
Maybe Maven's the answer.
Yeah, maybe. Here we go.
All right. So question. Go ahead. Right.
Just one more thing, because you asked what I would change.
Oh, yeah.
The biggest thing would be get rid of cfchart, obviously, and use JavaScript charts, which is what you should be doing. Not throwing any shade at you, Wade. In 2025, like use CF, use BoxLang, use Java, use it for the server. Use the front end for the front end. That's for still boxy. Will not get me all up.
All right, Ben. The to you on Lucy. Would you have done anything different if this were a Lucy hackathon?
I don't think so. And in fact, one of the nice things that Adobe ColdFusion 2025 finally introduced was the ability to provide a list of jar file paths in the create object call. So create object can create ColdFusion components. It can create Java objects. It can create like 3 or 4 other types of things. Corba file. I don't know what any of those things are. But for Lucy, for years, you were able to provide the name of the name of a thing, and then a list of jar files to read it from if it was a Java object. And ColdFusion finally added that. So going back to this idea of pulling down something like the FlexMark Java files or the JSoup Java files, if I needed to create a JSoup document, I could now say, load JSoup or like org.jsoup.doc or whatever, this class name, and then use this jar file to load it. And that's actually, like, as much as I love CSV files, being able to load jar files so seamlessly and effortlessly is just it was probably the thing I was most excited about. So if for anything, that's really brought into alignment the CFML engines for me. But
right, so go ahead.
I was going to say the other thing that Lucy's always had that I really like this is just a syntactic issue, is that if you're going to be using certain tags inside of CF script, you have to use the CF prefix. You do like CF header, open parentheses, close parentheses with the attributes. With Lucy, you can sort of treat it more like CF thread, where you can just say header name equals value equals semicolon, and you don't have to. It looks more like a native tag than it does like a ColdFusion-y syntaxy tag, which, I mean, there's no functional difference. It's more just a stylistic difference.
Now, I have a controversial question. We'll pause that after. I mean, Ray kind of went controversy on his CF charts, so we'll kind of tone down the energy a little bit for a minute. So one of the things about, and I'm relatively new to the CFML community, and I've heard, but it's all about rapid application development. And when I heard about a hackathon, I was like, oh, wow. And I told this to Mark Takata, the evangelist for ACF. I said, hey, you guys need to showcase that. You guys should have teams of people do hackathons around the country and do it all in ColdFusion and show off how much you can actually do in the same amount of time compared to people doing stuff in other languages. I think that'd be a great way to kind of promote. And I think any of the communities, that could be any of the 3 CFML communities could do something like that as well to showcase that. So for you guys, given the amount of time you spent on the hackathon and your experiences in other languages, could you have done the same project in the same amount of time in another language? Is it true about the rapid application potential of ColdFusion?
I have the least probably language experience here of maybe everybody, so I'll defer to Ray.
I will say something perhaps controversial based on 30 years and a lot of love for ColdFusion, a lot of love for the community as well. For a long time, ColdFusion had a great advantage of being very approachable, especially for non-developers, and that was huge. So like in the beginning, really, there was ColdFusion PHP and ASP. Like that was pretty much it. And easily, ColdFusion was just as powerful for the most part, but a heck of a lot more approachable. I think in 2025, ColdFusion still is a very approachable language. It's still something that a non-developer could pick up and be successful with. I don't think it necessarily stands alone in that regards as being like the only approach. I think Python, for example, is a great language for non-developers to pick up because you're essentially scripting. It's really, really powerful. So yes, I definitely think I could do what I did for the hackathon in any language at all and pretty much just as fast. So yes, that's my opinion.
Wade.
Yeah, probably not. I could have got to the end point of it, but it would have taken me a lot longer. Definitely, because with ColdFusion, if I come up with a new site, I'm up and running in 2 days, 3 days, and I have everything I need to do. And that's what I love about it. If I had to start over with, I've dabbled with other languages as well, but yeah, I definitely would have had a harder time pulling something together. But that's me.
And yeah, so
and CF charts all the way, by the way. So I'm going to send you a T-shirt, Raymond. CF charts.
Certainly, I feel like I'm by far the most proficient in ColdFusion just because I have a depth of understanding that makes it very muscle memory for me. I think everything that I did in the project, I could have done in something like Node.js, which is probably my other most well understood language just because it's JavaScript and I know JavaScript. But I do think that there is just a simplicity to the way that the tags work. And even though I do all of my backend stuff in script these days and components, having to render HTML and not having to worry about some weird bracy. I mean, I know it's just syntax, but looking at something like pug templates in Node, and maybe that dates me. Maybe pug's not even a thing anymore. Or like handlebars, again, maybe that dates me. There was just something so seamlessly integrated about tags and the CF loop, and I have to output a table, and the CF loop just sits perfectly in between, the T body and the TRs. And so if you remove a lot of the back end stuff and just think about the front end stuff, and you don't go to something like a React or an Angular or a Vue, I still think that there are efficiencies, or let's call them developer ergonomics, that still kind of set ColdFusion apart, but that could also just be very heavily weighted by my own experience. My own ability to conjure the stuff up in my head. Because so for years I used MySQL, and I loved MySQL for no particular reason other than it's kind of what I had started on. And at work, I'm now using Microsoft SQL. And you think like, two SQL engines, they're basically the same, but I feel like a fish out of water. Every time I try to do some little thing, I realize that, actually that was a MySQL only feature that I didn't quite realize. Or like, they don't have a string concat, they have like string group, but then like string group wasn't introduced until Microsoft SQL Server 13 and I'm on 12. I don't know. It's like even the things that feel like they're the same, having the depth of experience really does make a huge difference.
Yeah, I saw you blog about that. It's gonna be interesting to read because I've been the opposite, where I've experienced in Microsoft SQL Server and I've tried to do stuff in MySQL, and I've been like, why is this not there? Like it's acting differently.
Right. But that's my point. It's like it's not that MySQL is better than SQL Server. It's more just there's so many little everyday details that I forgot were MySQL details, but they became the way that I did stuff. That now when I go to do it in another SQL language, it's different enough that I'm just constantly tripping.
All right, so I thought we were going to do a non-controversial for our show question on the is could you do it faster? But Ray kept stoking the controversy here. I mean, he's kind of I guess poking every controversial bear we got. So we'll throw another one out there. And I didn't hear any of you guys mention it. But the elephant in the room on most developers' conversations is AI. Mm. So did any of you guys use AI either for coding or even inspiration on kind of spitballing ideas for the hackathon?
Nope.
No, I didn't.
I'm very pro AI. I use it all the time. It didn't make sense to me for this.
Yeah, I think I asked it one question. I was having some challenge with some algorithm, and I needed a little help with the pseudocode. But for the most part, I went in knowing what I wanted to build.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was talking to Ben the day before the Friday of, I guess, it in theory starting. Depending on how you read depending on the rules. I was thinking because I'm not a real coder. I mean, you guys would laugh at me trying to do code. All of you guys have tons of experience at this. So I was like, you know what? I could use AI, and I'll spit. And I actually did brainstorming with it. I'm like, give me some ideas, and I don't like that one, and did some iteration on just like ideas and came up with something. And I was trying to figure out if I could actually create some sort of an agent-based AI development group to kind of do projects and then kind of correct itself. I couldn't, and I think it was a bad weekend, as many people have said. So I couldn't get the time to really crank through it. But it's something interesting. I didn't know if anyone had done any of that. So I guess was it faster was actually more controversial than AI. So I was wrong on the heat of the conversation.
I have a bunch of API integrations that I have in my code goes to AI, and I've used AI. I've asked it a few questions. Hey, how would I code this in ColdFusion? And it gives a bunch of code, and I'm like, okay, well, you totally forgot about this. It's like, oh yeah, you're right. So it's very miss in my for writing code, but for ideas and stuff, I mean, I could have implemented something, but as I said, I use API and I don't want to expose any API keys and stuff like that. So I kept it off.
All right, so an easy one for you guys. I'll throw out this one: challenges, surprises, lessons learned. Like, what would you guys, and you guys can all kind of chime in here. Anything you would have done differently, or lessons learned for next year's hackathon to kind of give to the participants or to the future you, to kind of make your next hackathon project even better. For Ray, I guess, to kind of crack the top 3. For Wade, Ben to get into number 1 spot. What would your advice be for the future Ben, Wades, and Rays out there?
For me, I just hope there would be more people participating. I was just surprised to learn that there was only 6 entries, I think, in this, which was really low. I thought there would be a lot more. So getting the word out, of course, would be the one thing. And for the future, if they do have another hackathon, would it still be on 2025, or is it going to be like, I'm still learning their subscription model and how they're rolling out new stuff. So is there going to be a CF 2026 or
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to call it. A good question.
Yeah, I was wondering how they're going to, or are they going to build something else?
I mean, there are other subscription models that do still have versions, so you will still have.
Yeah. So they're just going to roll upon 2025 and supposedly like a Windows 10 thing and just keep that going perpetually, or is it?
Yeah, good question.
Well,
it depends.
A question for hosting providers like Xbyte. I know it was quite a hurdle to understand the pricing model subscription at the, like you guys have special vendor subscriptions, I believe, to Adobe, right? And going from that annual license or perpetual license to the subscription license now, is that basically a solved problem going forward, or is that going to be a hurdle with every release?
No, for us, nothing changed. We're always on subscription. So the way we do things is basically there's a commitment and then a true up period. So we commit to a certain number of licenses, and then at the end of the term, if we go over that, then we pay some sort of a true up on that. But it's always been subscription. So there
was a lot of complexity or new complexity around 20.
That was on just offering licenses, the actual license keys, not the money per se for it.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I misunderstood.
It took Adobe some time to figure out how to do the languages for all of their larger ETL customers.
Gotcha.
So there was just a race to get it done, and so they had to do some catch up on it. So yeah, so all of the hosting providers, we were kind of on a little delay. Once it came out, we couldn't offer it for a while, and then there was a workaround for a short period of time. But now we are all straightened out. But yeah, it was weird. I was a little surprised when it came out that all of us couldn't offer it right away. So, but yeah.
Going back to your question though about something I would change next year, I would try to remind myself over and over and over again that this will never run in production, because I'm so used to thinking about, what if a million users start using this, and what if someone could brute force guess the URL, and I kept having to say, this will never run anywhere. You don't have to worry about this. You don't have to worry about this.
I haven't written code for production in like a decade. I never worry about anything.
Oh yeah.
So Ray, any advice for future Ray?
More cats.
Yeah, I should have done something. Cat. No, I mean, outside of being confused as to when I was supposed to be working on it, which my advice to Adobe would be like, listen, if you only had 6 people participate, don't worry so much about those rules. Give them a month, have a due date, and just go with it. Like, no one's going to spend a month, 40 hours a week doing this. No. So maybe be a bit more loose. So I did not win, so maybe if I had used 1 or 2 more new features, I could have probably looked a little bit more to see if I could just shoehorn something in, you know.
It was interesting when Wade first started talking about his project. He reminded me of like one of those cooks on like a cooking show. He's like, "Oh yeah, and I want to bring this in there." So I weaved it in like this, and I need to bring in like this special ingredient. So I looked at what I had. Okay, how can I bring that special ingredient into my meal? So it was very
I looked
like
at all the lists. What could I get? I've looked at every little
Yeah.
new thing. I'm like, okay, can I add that? Can I add that in there?
Totally what I'm
Let's
doing.
pile that on top. You know, so
You're
So
trying to
wonderful
impress the
design.
judges. You're like, hey, if I shove everything in here, that would make sense. So Ray mentioned this about advice for Adobe. So assuming Adobe's going to watch this, or I'll just create a short for them about just one segment. And I'll throw my out because I keep asking you guys questions. I'll answer this one myself. But what could Adobe do differently? And while virtual makes a lot of sense, my advice would be in person. I mean, you have a conference, so the Ray's shaking it. I'm like, I've had so much fun. At other conferences because where you go and you're put in groups and it's written. So I'll tell you my experience and why I like it. And I'm an extrovert, so remember that as I tell the story. But you get put in these random groups, and you then have a finite period to create some sort of project, and you do it right there. And in this project it was 24 hours. I've done a couple of these, and it was interesting because you get to meet new people, and then you have the relationship with other developers who are doing that other thing. So then you have a chance to expand your network and then be able to lean on them. The other interesting part about those groups is that there was non-developers also in the group. And when I looked, and there was probably 75 people or so, maybe who did this. The interesting thing was the non-developers brought the teams with better non-developers actually were the winning teams, not because they did something amazing, but they produced fresh perspective and kind of did a more well-rounded solution. Because they're like, when I look at it from a business perspective, like, oh, hey, you want to do this because you want to do a certain dashboard. You want to do these charting because the story about it from marketing, again, a marketing perspective also, there's a story behind it. So when you're telling that story to judges, and there was no story here, no presentation, but when you tell that story, it helps having like a cohesive story, and then you can kind of bring in all those parts. And so from my experience with hackathons in person, I really enjoyed that piece of it. So that would be my advice. Although Ray's, yeah.
Only thing I have a problem with was one tiny part, and that is 24-hour. Like I've been to hackathons for like the whole weekend, and like some people spent like they stayed up. And I'm too old for that.
Yo, I want after them.
Yeah, and I love to code, but no, like so if you had something that was finite, but also like maybe 8 hours. But the only issue with that, if it's tied to a conference, are you going to the conference early?
Right.
Which means less time with your family, or are you skipping a day of the sessions to do that instead? You're giving something up. You know, if it was something done like maybe an 8-hour block or a 6-hour block and done, I could get in favor of that. Anything more than that, it's like I'm just too old for that.
Preach.
All right, so advice to Adobe. Ben, Wade, what advice do you have?
Ray has a hard stop. Yeah.
2 minutes, but I can go a couple minutes. Let's say these thoughts, and then I'll. Yeah.
Advice to Adobe.
So what advice do you have for Adobe, or how do they get more people involved? So any advice to them on how to kind of do this next year? How to get more people involved?
Yes, social media. I mean, I see their LinkedIn and stuff. There's like 600 people followers, I think, on LinkedIn. I mean, there's very low numbers. So I don't know what their social media plans are and all that, but I mean, that's a start. And of course, getting some younger faces is always, it's, I don't know how many 20-year-olds now are using ColdFusion. It just seems like the age is getting older and older, and that's I don't mean to push everybody out the door, because you're getting older, but I'm going to be using this until my feet are in the air. I guess I'm on 6 feet under.
I know Brian Sappe has done some coding camps, or at least one coding camp with kids, and part of the product was they did stuff with ColdFusion in their development. So it would be interesting to kind of do one where it's all right, the old guys versus the kids, who can kind of put together the project, and they get the whole team and kind of break it up in pieces for the kids to kind of produce something. That'd be kind of fun to see how well everyone does. And then these were like, I think, middle schoolers, so that'd be really fun to kind of see. And I would love to actually see their products more spotlighted. But there were some issues with not wanting to some of the kids and not wanting to get them too involved with Adobe or something, or just the not wanting to draw too much attention to it. I know he had some limitations on that, but it would be interesting to kind of get, again, to Wade's point, to get younger people involved in this. Any other advice for you guys to Adobe, or how do they get more people involved? Nothing?
I know I used to do on my blog a long time ago, I would do Friday code challenges. So not really a hackathon, just like write a function that does this. And so if they could go on a smaller scale and more often, they could say, hey, here's a CSV file we created. Write a function that reads it and finds all the people named Ben, our first name Ben, right? So that's practical code challenge. That's probably 5 to 10 minutes. And that was like always my thing. Make it so that like a person wakes up Friday morning, sees Ray's blog post, and like, while I'm drinking my coffee, I'll do it before doing real work. They could do that. The thing is, like, when I think about like, where do people go now to like congregate about ColdFusion? Like Ben's blog, my blog used to be pretty popular for that. I don't know how much that happens nowadays. I know Adobe has a ColdFusion blog, but I don't know how popular it is. Like do people go there like every week to see what's new? I don't know.
I really like that Friday challenge idea. I'm a puzzle game guy, so I do the Wordle every day. I do LinkedIn Queens. So yeah, having that kind of a weekly thing that everyone, it builds community. To rate your point, there's a community of people who then go there to kind of show off. Hey, I did this in 3 lines. And you can kind of do the same sort of thing. Like how easily can you make this happen? That's pretty cool. I like that idea.
Yeah, I'm thinking about doing that for BoxLang, just FYI.
Oh, you just gave it to Adobe now. They can compete.
Share.
We want the entire CFML community to grow. So however that happens, make it happen. All right. Any I'll pass it around for everybody. Even include some self-promotion if you want to. Wade, I'll give you 30 seconds. Give us some closing comments.
Closing comments. Okay, yeah. Well, I had fun with the hackathon. It was something, out of the box, you can say. It wasn't anything that was I've ever done before. It's the first time I've ever competed in something like that. So, yeah, that's cool. I'm going to continue using ColdFusion. I got my URLs, wadebatch.com, WDEBACH.com, and you can find everything there. So I'm still floating around. If you have any CF10 or CF11 applications out there that need help,
Nice.
I'll gladly help out.
There you go. Ray, 30 seconds.
They are there. That's the sad part.
Yeah.
I'll just say thank you for having me. If anybody has any questions, RaymondCamden.com. And advice, it's been a very hard couple of years. And for me, going to therapy has been incredibly helpful. So even if you're not struggling, but if you are struggling, absolutely consider therapy. It was a lifesaver for me.
That's awesome advice. Thank you, Ray.
Nice.
Ben, you were kind of guest/host this time. We kind of covered you with questions, so I'll give you 30 seconds at the end too.
I love me some ColdFusion. Still get a tremendous amount of joy out of it. And it's funny, I listen to a lot of podcasts for various other technologies, and people will talk about like, Vercel has file-based routing. I'm like, bro, we've had file-based routing since like day one. That's literally how the technology works. But I don't know. It's just great that I feel like I can do basically anything with ColdFusion.
Well, guys, thank you very much. I know I'm always amazed seeing the Ben's blog and actually getting to chat with him on a weekly basis on the show. I'm always honored that he wanted to join me on this journey. And then I get to chat with Wade as well, kind of someone I didn't really know too much about, but I've gotten some exposure to from this. And then, of course, Ray, another legend out there. So thank you very much for joining us today. And everybody, thank you for watching. Hopefully you've learned some stuff. And hopefully you get this, and you know what, you decide you want to do next year's hackathon and compete. And so the next year Ray could say, you know what, I got number 2 out of 50. So you know what, I was number 4 or 5 out of 6, but now I'm 2 out of 50. Boom, mic drop. All right, guys, thank you guys very much. Cheers, everybody.
Catch you later.